order and reporting of members present and absent.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Here.
McDermott,
Here.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater. Here.
Open meeting compliance statement read.
I, the undersigned clerk of the Board of Education of the Alva Independent School District, number 1 of Woods County, Oklahoma, certify that prior to December 15th of the last calendar year, the date, time, and place of this regular meeting was filed in the office of the County Clerk of Woods County, Oklahoma. I also certify that at least 24 hours prior to this meeting, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, notice of the date, time, and place of this agenda was posted in prominent public view at the location of the meeting.
Consent agenda. All the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature, normally approved by one board vote, unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of the items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following: addition of items of new business to the agenda,
There is none.
minutes of the September 8, 2020 regular board meeting, approval of the finance report, approval of the activity fund report, approval of the activity fund fundraisers, approval of the child nutrition report, and declare the following items as surplus.
Okay, we'll go back up and begin at 3.2, our minutes from our September 8, 2020 board meeting. And I did not see any errors with our minutes. 3.3, our finance report. Have two there, our investments, which are done by Mr. Manning at Woods County. All those are current and up to date. Look at our second attachment, the October finance report. Wanted to pull that up, just draw your attention to, again, if I can enlarge this a little bit, our comparison of our chargeables. Again, we've really been monitoring gross production. Obviously, we all are aware of economically that situation, and so we continue to show to be down in that area as compared to last year, $335,000 in our gross production. I wanted to also show you a comparison of revenue and expenses. This top graph is FY21 and the bottom graph is FY20. Just to give you a little bit of idea, you can see that, and really this is a credit to administrators and building principals really monitoring our expenses. You can see that we're down in revenue, but our principals did a really good job of managing expenses over the course of these past 3 months. So thank them for the job that they're doing there. Our activity fund report, all of our activity funds are in really good standing. We've not had many fundraisers that have taken place. The one area that you'll notice, excuse me, an increase is in our FFA account as they have been selling black and gold sausage. 3.5 activity fundraisers. We have 2 fundraisers that have been added. A late addition is for our Quiz Bowl team. I want to thank Mr. Smith. He's still working to find someone, and need to thank Ms. Vermillion as she has volunteered to help out with that group as we continue to look for someone to take those students to Quiz Bowl. We also have an addition to concession stand for a football game. We had an organization that was unable to work the concession stand. I believe it's the October 23rd football game. And so Ladybug Basketball will be doing that, and they did not prior have a fundraiser for concession. 3.6, the child nutrition report. Just wanted to give you an idea of kind of what our lunches and breakfast look like from a statistical standpoint. Pretty difficult, I guess, to probably see that, but one of the things that we are seeing is an increase in our lunch and breakfast throughout the district at each site. I want to thank Ms. Martini and Mr. Smith at the 9 weeks. They have built in some added time, additional time, especially for here at the high school between first and second hour, for students to come and get a grab-and-go breakfast in between classes, about 15 minutes of extra time to do that. And so we really want to encourage our students to have that breakfast meal in the morning. Everything seems to be going well. Continue to hear really good things from not only our staff, but from our students. And then lastly, 3.7, items of surplus. We have three items of surplus here with our ag farm. Are there any questions about the consent agenda? If there are none, I would recommend its approval.
I make a motion we approve 3.1 through 3.7 as presented.
Second.
Slater? Yes. Parker?
Yes.
McDermott?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Vote to approve purchase order encumbrances for the following funds for fiscal year 21. 4.1 general fund as referenced. 4.2 building fund as referenced. 4.3 child nutrition fund as referenced. And 4.4 gift fund as referenced.
Okay, we'll move up to 4.1, our general fund. Just want to run through a couple of those purchase orders. Purchase order number 237, that is our Verizon hotspot that we were able to purchase at a reduced rate from the state. Purchase order number 243, Max Teaching. That is professional development that we will have this spring for our teachers. We've used them before with our secondary teachers, and so they will be doing it again and working with our teachers at that time. Actually, it will be virtual, excuse me. Purchase order number 252, Camming, is a software program. It allows for digital signatures, and it's something that we've struggled with as we've moved into this virtual transition is digital signatures, not only amongst our adults, but also our students. And so this is going to make that transition easier. Trevor and IT will be able to push that download out to all of our Chromebooks, and that software will be on all the Chromebooks throughout the district. Purchase order number 254, ProVantage computers. Those are going to be office computers at central office. We realized through the pandemic that mobility is critical, and that is one area we have not been at central office. And so that's going to provide some mobility and flexibility for staff in case that becomes warranted in our central office. Purchase order number 259, Learning A to Z. That is some software that we are going to use our reading sufficiency money. We'll be reimbursed for that, and our students use that at those two sites. General fund, payroll, those are all substitute payments, and then we will have a new employee that we will bring to you later. 4.2, our building fund. Just a few purchase orders to note there. Purchase order number 26, Zeller floor covering. That is to replace some of the carpet that was down the bottom level at Lincoln. No students were in that class, but that's where we had that backup. So we had to take that carpet up and replace it. Purchase order number 27. We've had a lot of erosion around the high school from the rain, so we have worked, Mr. Smith has done a great job from the east side of the gymnasium to the east side of the auditorium, filling in some eroded areas at our football field, and so still working our way through all that. And then lastly, purchase order number 29, Vendetti Plumbing. We had to repair a sewer line in Washington. There are no encumbrances in our child nutrition fund, our gift fund. You will notice that these are our scholarships for the spring semester from Share Trust. Any questions from any of our funds, our general fund, building fund, child nutrition fund, or gift fund? If there are none, I would recommend its approval.
I
make a motion, we approve the purchase order encumbrances referenced in 4.1 through 4.4.
Second.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Superintendent's report.
We'll start with one resignation. Chantel Ruger will be leaving us as a teacher's aide, paraprofessional teacher's aide in our pre-K. And so we want to wish Chantel the best. She has been a good employee for us. We wanted to communicate with the board, first of all, just the great job that our students and staff and families have done. When you look around the state, there are very few schools that have been in session like we have. And I think that's a real credit to our kids and our parents, and I think you all as a board. We have been very diligent in our cleaning, in our face covering, social distancing, and just really proud of our kids and our staff for what they've been able to accomplish, and we look forward to continuing that. I also wanted to mention our community made a large commitment last year with our strategic plan, and we put that on hold as we went through our spring and with the unforeseen circumstances with the pandemic. But we're beginning to revisit that, review that as an administrative team. It was difficult for us, I think, at a time to wrap our mind around how you would have virtual meetings and how you would have committee meetings, but I think that is how it's going to be. And so we are beginning to revisit that. We want to begin involving our community in that plan that they felt so strongly about. And so we will begin working our way through that with the hopes of redeveloping committees and kicking that off again in the spring. That is all I have.
Thank you. Items of current business. 6.1, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the bids as recommended by Kyler Construction Group Incorporated, construction manager for the Alva High School art room project.
At this time, I would like to introduce Paul Kyler and Ryan McIntosh from Kyler Construction. We have been working with them over the past a few months, and appreciate them, and they are going to present to you the bids and the recommendations.
Can everybody hear me okay? I'm Paul. This is Ryan. Like Mr. Argo said, we've been working for most of the year toward trying to put together a project for the art building renovation. And that ultimately landed us at September 23rd as a bid day. We were pleasantly surprised with the turnout that we had. We were concerned that there's a lot of work going on right now. There's issues with, as you know, with COVID, and people kind of being gun shy about bidding right now. But we had an excellent turnout, I will say, a lot better than what we expected. So with that, after we got all the bids in, we went back to our office. We accumulated everything. We went through and talked to all the low bidders to make sure they're comfortable with their number, that they understand the scope of work, and that they're willing to sign a contract to move forward. So with that, we've accumulated this report that I hope everybody can look at. If not, I've got a few extra copies because I'm going to reference this quite a bit.
Do I have that pulled up there?
No, that's the bid results. It should look like this. That's it right there, yeah. Okay, so what we're looking to do tonight is we're trying to seek your approval for that top section of bids, bid packages recommended for approval, which totals $359,357. Okay, that is for what we call the base bid project, which is basically you're going to get the new restrooms, you're going to get upgraded electrical, and you're going to get upgraded HVAC in the building for that number. We still have a couple of gaps. That's the second section. We didn't get any bids for doors and hardware or for fire extinguishers. Those are minor pieces of the project. We can go get quotes and bring those back to you later. But we did give estimates for those things, and we've accumulated a total construction cost for the base bid, which is in blue. It doesn't show up real well down at the bottom. But that would be our number as of today to do the base bid project before any alternates, if that makes sense. That also includes an $80,000 allowance for OG&E to come in and bring in the new three-phase power. We're still a little unclear how that's going to work. We're still working that. That's probably something that you would pay for directly if we have to do that. We may not have to do that. We still don't know at this point. But we wanted to put it in here just so you know that that's a potential cost in the project. So like I said, what we're really looking for tonight is to approve those bid packages in the top section so that we can get those folks under contract and move forward with building. And we'd also like to kind of get a feel for what alternates you're thinking we might want to accept, because depending on what alternates are selected, it might change what subcontractors are awarded. The numbers were that tight. So do we want to walk through those alternates and kind of talk about those?
So if you have any questions, we'll stick with our agenda item, the 6.1 of the possibles in the discussion.
Right.
And so if there's any questions that you have with any of the base bid or anything that Mr. Tyler has presented at this point, we might address those questions now. If there are none, we can move on to agenda item 6.2, and that would be your recommendation of alternates to the bid.
The bid for roofing up here, the $4,000,
Yes.
tell me about that. Is that just to remove something or?
Go ahead, Ryan, I'll
It's-
let you take that
It's
one.
basically patching the existing, no replacement. And in our experience, if you want a recommendation from us, when you start with new finishes and things like that, we don't recommend it. It is an option, but we run into all sorts of warranty issues. Where's the stop? You know, at this point, it's a best guess as far as what needs to happen and you know, the entirety of that scope.
So what you get for the $4,000 is our best guess at a Band-Aid on what the worst parts of the roof. They're going to address those critical parts, and that's it. You're not getting a new roof by any means. The new roof is alternate number 2.
So, Jamie, then we'll go ahead and move on to 6.2, and read that agenda item, and then you can discuss
Okay.
in detail those alternates and ask any more questions that you might have.
Okay, 6.2.
Okay?
Discussion with possible board action, vote to approve any or all of the alternates, 1 through 7, for the Alva High School art room project.
Okay, alternate number 1 is an addition for a concession stand on the northwest corner of the art building. So it's ground up construction. Alternate number 2, as I said before, is a brand new roof on the art building. Alternate number 3 is new windows, which we also highly recommend that. That's a building envelope. When we talk about building envelope, we like to seal that thing before you go in and spend a bunch of money on the inside. So we highly recommend alternates 2 and 3 for what that's worth. Alternate number 4 is an allowance. That's Tri-Arc's number of $50,000. Basically, that would cover anything we want to do on the outside of the building to dress it up. You know, paint the panels, maybe replace some trim, just to dress up the outside of the building. That may be $5,000, it may be $50,000. We don't know at this point, it's an allowance. Alternate 5 kind of goes with the concession stand. It's a guardrail on that side of the building for that handicap ramp that runs along there. It's just a railing, so you'll meet code for handicap access to the concession stand and that side of the building, and also the football field. Alternate 6 is purely electrical work in that kiln building that sets off to the south of the art building. Apparently there's some issues in there with electrical that will be addressed with this alternate. And then alternate 7 is a lot of upgrades to the inside of the art building as far as really bringing it up to look nice, I guess is what I'm saying. Floor covering, paint, metal wall panels, there's some cabinets. What am I leaving
Additional
out?
wall.
New walls, reconfiguring the rooms, opening up the space and then building it back to where it better suits what the building's used for. If that makes sense. I don't know, do you have the graphic representation of that Tony sent handy? I think we brought a hard copy of it we could pass around.
Alternate number 7 gets a lot more involved in the interior finishes beyond the restrooms and the HVAC.
Okay, so the interior work, the roof structure or the exterior work does cover the locker room, correct? There's the art room, and then we come around, and then there's the locker room that comes around towards the restrooms.
The locker room is not addressed in the base bid.
Okay, not in the interior work, is the exterior work covering your locker room?
No,
Not at all?
no. The walls highlighted in green is what would be changed.
There's a contingency bid of $51,000. What do you anticipate that to cover?
That's for unforeseen things that come up during the remodel that are going to come up. Things are going to happen. So let's say we open a wall and we find something back there that we didn't think was there, and it's some electrical that needs to be taken out, and it's $250. Well, we can handle that with Mr. Argo because you've already approved the money to take care of it. We don't have to come back to you for change orders every month. Now, whatever we don't use goes back to you. It's your money. But we always go through a process where we'll get the architect involved. He'll look at it and approve it. Mr. Argo or somebody with the school will approve it. We don't just do it because we want to do it. It goes through the process like a change order, but the board doesn't have to approve it as a change order.
How is that number derived, 51,207? Is that a percentage of
It's
the base
8%.
bid or percentage of the bid with alternates?
It's 8% of the base bid.
8% of the base.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if alternates are approved, would that increase that number?
No.
Based off that?
No, it'll come back to more like 5%. If we did all the alternates, more like 5%, which is like the minimum that we would recommend for a remodel. 3% for new construction, 5% for a remodel. So the number's a little high at 8% for the base bid, so you should be getting money back. But you guys have been in the building, you've seen it. We're gonna run into some things. The floors look like they need to be leveled in some spots. There's just, it's just hard to see all of that without doing some demolition. So that's what we elevated that number a little bit. Now, we can bring it down to whatever you're comfortable with. That's just what we came up with.
But again, any portion that's not used or utilized or needed goes right back to you.
Yeah.
So the only number in this top part, the only thing I see is the $4,000 is if we went down and included number 2, then obviously that would delete the 4,000 up here.
That's calculated into that number in alternate 2. We gave you that money back.
Okay, so it's actually $4,000 more down here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it actually,
Right. Right.
The actual bid amount, yes, was an additional 4,000. So it's accounted for.
Mr. Alva, which ones are you recommend?
I think after visiting with Paul and Ryan last week, I think that from their recommendations, the roof, the windows, and number 7, the finish of the building interior is what we need to do. I think it's important that we have a good envelope, as they've said, and we also have a good finish on the inside for our students. We've all been in the art room, and we've seen that there needs to be some major upgrade for our students. And so I think by doing this, I think we're going to have a good workspace for them, and I think it's something that we're going to be proud of when it's finished. So it'd be my recommendation that we would accept the base bid and alternates 2, 3, and 7.
the concession stand, would not be accessible from those people on the west side of the football field.
Right, and one of the things that this kind of goes back to a little bit of our discussion with our strategic planning and the facilities committee. Our long-term dream is to have a concession stand on the west side where we park, and I don't feel like right now that would be a good expense from our building fund to do something like that when our dream is for the other side. I think that will make that more accessible, not only where people are sitting, but also when we talk about, again, looking at what needs to be done from a traffic standpoint. We know that we've got to make this thoroughfare better for our families as we use the indoor, and putting a concession on that west side is going to make that even more difficult down the line as we try to get the snake expanded and so on. So I don't think the concession stand is something that we would want to do at this point in time.
What about for safety issues? Number 6, the upgrade of the electrical.
So the upgrading the electrical and the kiln, that is for him to run more kilns at one time. It's not a safety issue, but he can't run as many at one time. And I don't think that all of them need to be running at one time. That was more of, if we could, Mr. McClure would like that, but not something that we necessarily had to.
Does he have more than one?
Great question. I believe so, but I hate to even, yes, he does have more than one, and I'm not sure how many. And that's part of the issue that he's had, is you cannot run all of them at the same time. But I don't think it's, again, I don't think that's something that's necessary. I think that's something that maybe was more of a dream.
Would it be easy to add that later?
Paul?
Yes. Yeah, but it's a separate building, and I believe that I think we're doing some chases inside the art building anyway. So I think to answer your question, I think yes, it would be simple to do that down the road.
We would have to look a little bit more into that, but I think the addition, the upgraded power that's coming into the art center, that's part of base bid, will accommodate those changes. So you wouldn't have to be looking at, you know, an upgraded transformer or, you know, something like that down the line. I think it was accounted for in base bid. Again, we'd have to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's how they designed that.
Were there any ADA concerns inside the building? You mentioned new guardrail, if we did the concession stand as an alternate. Were there any, I don't see any ADA specific items on the base bid.
I think that everything in the building would be accommodate ADA once we finish. I don't think we have any door opening issues. I think everything's plenty wide enough. Like I said, we're going to be doing some leveling in there, so you don't have any humps that you would have to address. So to answer your question, yes, I think ADA would be just fine. I mean, I get my direction mixed up here. The northeast door, I guess, would be the main door going into the building. That's pretty flat, with sidewalk going in. And it seems like that room that you go into and then the art room are probably the highest use areas. And the access now is actually pretty good, the way it is. So we're just going to make that better.
I should know the answer to this because we walked over there several times, but I'm still a little concerned. The roof does not go over, this is a separate building here, this locker room and these coaches' rooms, and that's a separate building, isn't it? Or does the roof go over that as well?
The roof goes over that as well.
Okay,
Yes.
and that's what I was understanding. So,
Okay.
So the roof will cover that locker room
Yes.
area?
Yes.
Okay, because that was my question earlier.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Well, okay.
Nothing on the interior in that locker room, but the entirety of the building will be.
And the windows of that, on the west side of that building, all those windows will be replaced?
The ones that are in the art
in the
room,
yard.
Why would we not go ahead and replace them?
some of them are being filled in. Some of the windows are being filled in.
Okay. I realize we don't necessarily want to spend money to renovate the interior of that, but I would think that all that exterior work on that outside would match.
What's the time frame we're looking at?
That's a good question. I think we're looking at 6-7 months for construction. It'll be on the lower end of that if we don't do the concession stand. 'Cause like I said, that's ground up. There's a lot more upfront work that we have to do there.
When do we think we can get started?
Twos are replacements, ones are infield. So 3 and then the rest replaced? Yeah. If you look at this, we didn't bring a full set or a big set, but they outline filling in these, and that might, I think that stays that way even without the concession. But where you see these twos, those replaced.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just confused when I asked about the roof.
Yeah, you basically have 2 buildings, it's one large building and then this shelter portion.
Right,
So,
okay, I understand.
Is there a question about when we're going to start? Did I hear that?
Yes.
As soon as you'll let me. It usually takes us 30 days to get contracts out to subs and do the paperwork end of it. So I can see it starting in November. if that works with the school schedule.
Do they have art in that building currently? Where will they go if they start in November?
So they're currently having art in that space. They will move over to this main hallway, and it would have been our Spanish lab prior.
Okay,
It has a sink and shares a sink, washroom area, and Mr. Leclerc felt like that would be a good space,
Okay.
temporary space for his students for the spring semester, if need be.
We want to add this up, see what the total cost of that is with all of that, and with 2, 3, and 7. Don't put a figure on it, so we'll. Somewhere.
I have that. Hang on just one second. Pull that up. Paul, do you have that number?
I don't.
Okay.
I have I think it's 890,479, does that sound about right?
yes, ma'am.
Any more questions?
We need this in 2 motions. I would make the motion that we approve the bids as recommended by Kyler Construction for 6.1. And that totals $640,087.
Second,
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
yes.
McDermott,
Aye.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Let's see what,
The alternates I have is 250,392.
say that again,
250,392.
the total 890,479.
Yes.
Okay, so 6.2, discussion of possible board action vote to approve any or all of the alternates 1 through 7 for the Alva High School art room project. Do I hear a motion as to what alternates we are going to add?
I would make the motion that we go with 2, 3, and 7 as presented on the alternates for the new addition.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you for your hard work. Doesn't take us very long to spend a lot of money, does it?
Well, I hope that you're happy with the end product. That alternate number 7's a tough one, but I'm just afraid that if you spend $650,000 and then you walk in that building, you're going to think, we spent $650,000 for this. So I think you've made the wise choice. So it's up to us to prove that to you at this point. Our next step will be to tighten up these other 2 bid packages, get real numbers in there, and we'll present a formal guaranteed maximum price document for you to approve and sign probably at the next board meeting. Okay?
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerardo, for all your work. I know you've done a lot of time. Okay, 6.3, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve a resolution to the Oklahoma State Department of Education of Alva Public Schools intent to use hours rather than days for the 2021 school year.
This is a routine agenda item. Attached is my letter that we submit to our accreditation officer to use hours for days. And so I would recommend to the board that we approve this.
A motion?
Move to approve 6.3 resolution to the Oklahoma State Department of Education for intent to use hours rather than days for the 2020-21 school calendar.
Second?
Parker,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
6.4, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the Albus School District budget for fiscal year 21.
Attached, you'll find the budget that I put together for you all. And the budget contains the information for our district. I've added some enrollment information and some other various parts to it, so I'll walk you through that. Pages 3 through 5 are just general information about the district, from our Board of Education to the size and scope. I also have on page 4 some administrative projections regarding why our budget looks the way it does. Obviously, the key factor in our budget as we move forward has been COVID, has been the pandemic. So, we've seen slight improvement in the market, but it continues to be a downward trend, especially in our gross production collection. One of the things that we're watching is our weighted student counts, and I've talked to you all about that before, and enrollment and student weights. As you know, we're down slightly in enrollment. We will also be going off of our high year weighted count, and so we already anticipate moving into next year there will be a decrease in our student weighted count. Some positive news is our valuation has gone up, so I think that's something that we really need to keep in mind as our evaluation continues to improve. I think that may be a sign that our market will continue to improve also. So I have some other information there on state aid that you can read through. And then you'll notice that I've provided some estimates and projections for our general fund moving into next year. The important thing for the board to remember, and moving on into page 6, our enrollment summary. You can see with our enrollment summary that there has been a drop or a decrease in our enrollment. I want to point out we've added a line to virtual there. And again, thank our administrators for their work this summer in developing an online academy. That was a strategic plan goal that I don't know that we realized we would need to see come to fruition like we did, but they were able to manage that, put that together, and allowed us to retain 43 students in our district, which I think is really critical, and so I appreciate their work and the time that they spent involved in that process. Page 7, talked about category weights, and I think that's just something to keep in mind and gives you a little bit of an idea how we are funded. You can see that each student gets a weighted average, and then also our special education students, given the talented, bilingual, and economic disadvantaged students, we all receive funding for each one of those. State funding in those weights has, for the most part, remained the same. You can see that from the graphs provided on page 8. Page 9, I wanted to provide the board an explanation of the functions. School finance is a learning curve for everyone, and this kind of gives an idea when you begin to look at the appropriations that are required for your approval. These functions gives an explanation for each one of these functions and what you see instead of just seeing a number. It's important to remember that with any of these numbers and these appropriations that you approve, that does not mean that that's what we spend. That just means that that's what we've appropriated by code. And so if you look at page 16, the general fund total appropriations by function, that is what the board will approve as part of this budget book. Mrs. Owen does a fantastic job. Could not do this without her. She takes our estimate of needs from Mr. Carroll and is able to put that in the appropriate function. And again, just can't thank her enough for her help. And our district is lucky to have her. If you look on page 20, general fund revenue projections and comparisons, just wanted to give you an idea of what I do each month in tracking our revenue and expenses. One of the things that I'm doing this year, look on page 20, the two far right columns, those percentages are a comparison of our estimate of needs. And so you can see in FY20 we were collecting at a much higher rate our estimate of needs than we are now. And so it's something that I just wanted to be able to track and also make you aware of each month that we need to be mindful of those collections. On page 22, the expenditures, and those carry on through page 24. You can see all those are put out into objects. In our OCAS, it's important to remember when you look at page 22, the top of that page, there is a comparison that you can look at from 1920, our previous school year. Page number 25, our building fund. Again, these are an explanation of the functions. And page 26, these are the appropriations from Mr. Carroll that we put in the appropriate function. Again, each month, our building fund revenue and expenses are tracked. And so we monitor that. Page 27 and 28, you can see those. Page 29 is our child nutrition fund. Again, an explanation of those funds and those functions. And then page 31, again, we have our child nutrition appropriations, what we receive in our estimate of needs from Mr. Carroll, and we put those in our appropriations for your approval. Page 32, just like our other funds, track these on a monthly basis so that we have a comparison and we're able to know what our revenue and what our expense is each month to provide a good report to you all as a board. And then finally, page 34, this is our gift fund total appropriations. And then 35, I wanted to include a net assessed valuation. And you can see again the encouraging point of view there in FY21. You can see that our evaluation has climbed from previous years. Really the highest it's been since FY18. Any questions about the budget that you might have? If there are none, I would recommend its approval.
I'd like to commend you and Mrs. Owen. I know this is very tedious, but you make it very simple and easy to understand. appreciate that.
Entertain a motion for the budget.
I'd make a motion that we approve the Alva District School budget for fiscal year '21 as presented.
Second.
Parker,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
I'd also like to say, Mr. Argo, thank you for getting that to us early, so we had a chance to peruse that before tonight's meeting. That was very helpful, thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Owen.
6.5, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the use of the ACT in place of the SAT for the State College and Career Readiness Assessment.
This is a new agenda item that we assume will become a regular agenda item. And normally what happens is each year we make a choice as a district as to what college and career readiness assessment that we will give our students. And we've always chosen the ACT as that has been something that the majority of our colleges and career tech and junior colleges use in their admission process. You can see through these attachments, this is the communication that's done by our middle school and high school counselor regarding the ACT and its use. One of the requirements now that we have that has been added this year is that we send in the agenda that we have communicated to you all that the ACT will be what is administered for our students at Alva High School. Are there any questions with 6.5? There are none, I would recommend support.
I'd make a motion that we accept 6.5 to approve the ACT in place of the SAT for State College Career Readiness Assessments.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
6.6, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve an offer of employment to applicant number 1, non-certified position for the 2021 school year.
With the resignation earlier of Chantel Ruger as a teacher's aide paraprofessional in our pre-K classroom, we would ask that the board approve the hiring of Sandra Hobbs as the teacher's aide paraprofessional for the 2020-21 school year.
I make a motion that we approve this person.
Second?
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
6.7, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the Alva School District's gifted educational plan for the 2021 school year.
I want to thank Ms. Martini, and I know she had a committee of folks that also worked with her, and so I'll turn it over to her for her presentation of the 2020-2021 gifted education plan.
Okay, we did meet and the committee chose to approve the gifted and talented plan. There were no changes to the actual plan except for the verbiage in the matrix, and that was simply changing from the previous testing to the current OSTP. So it was just essentially a name change and what that looked like. And we also discussed the state put out some information, and there are a lot of schools that are going to be impacted by COVID and by not being able to identify as many students without bringing them together and testing, like, sometimes happens in the spring. And so their recommendation is to look for different ways to nominate students. And that's exactly what we're going to do, is focus on some outside nominations. And this, students can be nominated for talent in vocal, instrumental music, visual arts, creative thinking and writing, speech and drama, and leadership. So there are different ways besides national ability tests to become part of the gifted and talented program. And so that's what the board has, our committee has decided to focus on this year.
Any questions the board has? And I might just add that one of the things from our strategic plan as we've begun to open that back up and begin to look at it is a real want from our community to invest in this program from a resources perspective. And so I think you'll continue to see some really good things come out of that program and as we develop it and hopefully make it a more robust program for our students.
In the provided information, there is a list of parents and teachers. Are those the same as they were last year?
Yes, it's a two-year cycle. So yes, there was one person who was removed from the list, and that was Karen Mead. When she was no longer a teacher for us, she was removed from that.
So you'll just meet with them virtually? Is
Yes,
that-
we met virtually, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mrs. Martini, when a student is maybe nominated through one of these new ways,
Mhm.
is there like a form to fill out, or?
There is, and we will be putting those nomination forms on the website. So anybody can go, it doesn't have to be a member of, the school. It can be an outside, it can be self-nominated. There's all different ways to nominate based on that. So yes, those forms will be on the website very
And
soon.
then those forms will go before the committee? Is that who chooses?
No, it's actually, through the matrix, it's all a point system. So, depending on, let me think of the best way to describe it. You earn points for different areas based on your accomplishments.
Okay.
So like if a student had, one thing that you look at is of course like ACT scores or state testing scores, and you can earn points based on your performance in those areas. But then there's also the outside, areas if you have multiple, teachers that are promoting you in the instrumental, you can earn points that way as well. So the goal is to try to get enough points to go into the program.
Okay. So it's strictly objective, it's points are points are points, Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Gotcha, all right, that makes sense. Okay, do I entertain a motion to approve the gifted and talented plan?
So moved.
Second.
Slater?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
McDermott?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Proposed executive session to discuss staff negotiations and the AEA contract, 25 Oklahoma State Statute, Section 307B2. Vote to convene into executive session.
I make a motion that we do that.
Second.
Slater?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
McDermott?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.